So I've bought a drone. I've bought a DJI Mavic Pro. Now, I've been fascinated by drones for years. I wanted to get one for a couple of years. But the thing that's always put me off is that they're so big and cumbersome. Even sort of smaller consumer drones like the DJI Phantom 3 and 4 are so big and bulky that they kind of need their own backpack, and I couldn't really see how that was going to work alongside my photography gear, because principally I'm a still photographer, that's what I do, and I didn't want to have to leave camera gear at home in order to take the drone. And also I like to travel as light as possible. It's one reason why I use a Fuji X series cameras and only a couple of lenses. And a big bulky drone didn't really fit in with that. So when DJI announced the Mavic, I was really curious about what it could do and if it was something that I could use. Now, if you've seen my website, you'll have seen that one of the things that I want to do more of this year is shoot video and learn about video, from making small YouTube clips like this to shooting, to getting more interesting footage when I'm out traveling or when I'm out shooting on location. But I don't really know very much about video, and that's going to become very apparent during the course of this film. But I also know nothing about drones. I've never flown one. I've never even been with a friend who has a drone that I've been able to practice with, so I've got no idea. So rather than being an in-depth review of the specifications and full features of the Mavic, what this is a film about how easy it is for someone like me, a complete beginner, to get up and going to the point where I can get the kind of shots and the kind of footage that I would really like to have. And how easy I found the Mavic to be able to fit into and alongside my photography gear and my photography practice, and see if I can use it alongside that in the field without any inconvenience. So I ordered the Mavic around about the time of its release back in October, and about a week or so ago, Colour Photo, which is a really great shop in Portugal, got in touch with me and told me that they'd received one and would I like it. Now, they only had the fly more kit. I'd originally only ordered the drone, but the fly more kit did have a lot of things in it that looked really useful. The extra batteries and the car charger, which I knew I would need sooner or later. And even some of the things that I hadn't been that interested in, things like the bag and the hub charger, actually turned out to be really useful. So the Mavic kit, it really is pretty much everything that's in there. You're going to need it sooner or later, so it's really well worth getting. So yeah, getting it out of the box, setting it up was all pretty straightforward. Plugging in the batteries, charging everything, getting the remote control charger was easy. I found it very easy to download the DJI Go app and then connect the Mavic to it. It's very straightforward. There's a really nice flight simulator on there, which I used a little bit to practice before I actually used the drone outside. But I was really eager to actually get outside and flying, and as a consequence of that, I may not have read the instructions quite as in detail as I should have done. I just wanted to get flying. And also I made some really rather large mistakes in terms of the video settings, which will become apparent as this film goes on. Alright, so I'm in the garden, gonna give it a try, first time. I've spent about 15 minutes playing around with the flight simulator on the control. It took me about, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe to set it up, to turn it, work out how to turn it on, all that kind of stuff. Let's see, you can hear it makes a lot of noise. It's not particularly quiet, but it's going to get dark in about an hour, and I'd like to try and use this properly tomorrow morning, so I really think now's the time to give it a try and make sure, hope I don't break anything. Okay, trying again. This is the third time, because before, every time I tried to fly, it wouldn't let me fly, telling me that I had no GPS, and then giving me a sign saying that the flight simulator had been completed, something like that, wouldn't take off. Basically, I've turned everything off, turned it back on again, rebooted it. Now everything seems to be green. Well, only one way to find out. GPS mode. Okay, let's see. Cool. This is actually really quite easy to fly. It's incredibly responsive, and even though it was quite windy, the drone handled that quite well. But as a first-time drone flyer and someone who'd never actually done this before, I did feel very strange doing it. There was a big sense of feeling almost a vertigo, of feeling that I was going to crash into something, it was going to fall out of the sky, I was going to break it, it wasn't going to come back, which made me feel really uncomfortable just flying up and down in the garden and peeping over the top of the neighbour's house. And then of course the other thing is the image quality here isn't very good, and I'll talk a little bit about why that is later. Okay, so as the first flight, didn't kill anyone, didn't crash into anything, didn't fall out of the sky and break. Basically all I did was go up and down, which as you could probably see, but it is interesting looking at seeing the view on the phone and getting a kind of perspective of my street that I've just never seen before. It feels weird though, it feels very weird to be controlling something in the sky. I'm very sort of aware of hitting something. I'm also living in quite a built up area. I live right in the centre of Lisbon, so I do feel very, it does make you quite nervous flying it. It's probably going to be a little bit more different out in the open air, next to the sea or in the countryside, so we'll see. But I guess there's just going to be lots more to learn until I feel completely comfortable with this. It's like anything new really, it takes time to get used to. And then it becomes second nature. What I do know is it's going to be a lot of fun. I was really liking what I was seeing on the screen, gave me some really beautiful views, and the potential for this is really, really fantastic. So I'll try again soon, probably with some more interesting footage in my garden. So yeah, that was the first flight. I just really went up and down in the garden. I actually found it very easy to fly. It's very responsive. It did exactly what I wanted it to. If you've ever used a PlayStation controller, then it's pretty straightforward. What I didn't expect was how challenging it would be psychologically. I sort of felt quite a strong sense of vertigo. I kept thinking it was going to fall out of the sky, fly off over the horizon, and I didn't really kept thinking I was going to crash it basically, and part of that may have been because I was in a very built-up area. So it will be much better to try it out in an open area. The other thing in terms of setting it up, it took me about 3 attempts to actually be able to get it off the ground. I kept getting a message saying that it wasn't able to fly because there was no GPS connection. It's not particularly explicit about that you should calibrate it and how you go about calibrating it. Eventually you find the button and then there's another calibrate button, and it's quite a straightforward process. But in the manual and things like that, I didn't really sort of come across much about what I should be doing before I got it off the ground. But when I did, I found it quite straightforward, and I was pretty enthusiastic after that to sort of take it somewhere more interesting out to the coast and do something better with it and learn a little bit more. Okay, I'm here in Praia Grota on the Central Coast. This is the kind of place that I really want to be doing filming. Now I don't have my camera with me, I've just got GoPro, so the sound quality is probably once again a little bit crap. First time I flew the drone yesterday in the garden, felt a little bit weird, new thing, trying to get used to it. The only way is to learn, so this is the second attempt. Some a little bit more wild out over the sea. There's a little bit of wind today, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. Should be fun. So I was starting to get a little bit more comfortable with the drone on the second flight, and much more comfortable with sort of like making long passing shots and the kind of getting the kind of movement with the drone that I wanted to get the kind of shots that I'd had in my head. There's still that sense of vertigo flying it out over the sea, out over the top of cliffs. There is still that feeling that it's just going to fall into the sea and I'll never see it again, but I was kind of getting a lot more used to that and a lot more comfortable with it. But it was when I was editing these clips together that I really started to have issues with the image quality, particularly if you look in the rocks here. There's a lot of smearing, a lot of blurring that I really didn't like. Now, what I realized is one of the mistakes that I'd made is just played around with the camera settings in all the wrong kind of ways. So what I'd done is I'd left everything on automatic in terms of the exposure, which isn't a particularly good idea. And I also had the settings on the default settings, but I had changed the image quality. I wasn't shooting in 4K, I was shooting in 1080 because I wanted to shoot at 60 frames per second. When I started to cut this together, I realized that there was, it really wasn't looking very sharp. There were contrast issues, and that I needed to have a look at what I could do about improving the image quality. Still, I did really feel on that day I was having a lot of fun flying it, and I really did feel that I was making some kind of progress to getting the kind of shots that I really wanted to, if I could sort out the image quality. So it's getting more used to flying it, and I enjoyed it a lot more flying out over the coast. Looking at the screen on the phone, I was quite happy with what I was seeing, and I was getting much more aware of the kind of passing shots that I need to be doing to kind of get the kind of footage that I wanted. But when I started to edit the film together, I began to get really disappointed with the quality of the image quality of the footage. I really was not liking what I was seeing. Now, that was completely my fault. I've always used GoPros in the past, and I've always set them on 60 frames per second because I like to be able to slow down the action. And I'd made the mistake of doing that also on the Mavic, thinking that I might want to slow down the footage. Putting it at 60 frames per second means that you have to use it only in HD. You can't have it at 2.7K or 4K. So that was the first thing that I realized that I'd done. I then looked around online, came across Philip Bloom's channel, which is extremely useful, brilliant videography, and I found a lot of his settings actually worked a lot. So I went into the settings and put the camera onto cine-like, and everything, sharpening, contrast, saturation onto -1. So I was immediately a lot happier with the video settings. Now I made a comparison, but unfortunately when I came to do that, it was just an awful day here in Lisbon. I was tipping it down with rain and I just couldn't fly. So I put the drone just on a chair and pointed it out of the open window to do a video comparison. So the first thing that you can see here, this is the settings that I've been using it on with HD, 60 frames per second, and everything else in default. As soon as you put it into 2.7K, as you can see here, and put the settings onto -1, sharpening, contrast, saturation, there's just a huge leap in quality. And then finally in 4K, as you can see here, the quality looks really good. Now, as soon as it stopped raining, I just had a little fly around the garden. I wanted to have a look at the footage, and I was just a lot more pleased. I was really happy with what I was seeing, and it looked really great. I also wanted to compare it with the GoPro, with the Hero 5, because I'd read a lot of people saying that the GoPro is better. So here you can see the Mavic, and this is the GoPro. Now, obviously the field of view is much wider on the GoPro, but that's not really a problem for me. I like the fact that the Mavic brings me a little bit closer, and in other terms of quality, I don't really see any significant difference which makes me think that the Mavic is in any way disadvantaged. Maybe in low light, because I didn't test it in low light. The GoPro is better as it has a bigger sensor. However, for what I wanted to use them out for, what I was seeing was more than good enough. And I was really eager at this point to take it out in somewhere a bit more interesting with really good light and give it a test flight. So what I did was I went to a place that I've shot before, which is really just outside Lisbon, which I thought would give me some interesting footage. It's somewhere that I've never seen shot from an aerial perspective before, and it's something that I was quite eager to do. This is the Champalimau Foundation. It's a beautiful building, really modern architecture. It's just on the outside of Lisbon. It's a place where I've been quite a few times to photograph. I always like coming here to shoot. It's got interesting things. I thought I'd come out here to give the drone another test. It's very windy though, so I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be flying it, but I'd like to give it a try. One thing that I do like is the fact that I've got the drone, the camera kit, tripod, fitted it all in this. This is a low pro Photosport 200. It's a really lightweight bag, and I've always used it because I can fit in my Fuji, a couple of lenses, and there's space for other stuff. And now I can actually fit in the drone, the controller, spare batteries. It's got everything that I need really. So that's nice. Now the only thing left is am I going to be able to fly the drone in this wind, and how comfortable am I going to be? Let's see. Now, as you could probably hear from the clip before, it was incredibly windy. So what I wanted to do on this flight was to fly a lot further away to get it out over the river, but it was really so windy that I didn't feel comfortable doing that. However, I did get a lot more nice footage. The video looks a lot nicer in 4K, and again, just more confidence flying the drone. One of the things that I was particularly keen on trying out was tripod mode, which is what I was using here. Now, it was probably a very bad idea to be doing in such high wind, but it is interesting. It really does reduce the movement quite a lot, slows down the speed of the drone, which makes it much easier to control and give you these really sort of nice slow moving panning shots. But it's really something to be trying more when there's not quite so much wind. Another mistake that I made here was that I didn't compensate for the decreasing levels of light as it got darker. I left the camera set at ISO 200 when I should have actually increased the ISO a little bit, because there's a little bit of a drop in quality now. And I also had the opportunity to give the active track a go. Now, like everything else in the Mavic, it's incredibly easy to operate. It's just one click and then you're into the menus, and then very easy to select myself in the active track. Camera found me very quickly and followed me around wherever I went. I was impressed with how well it worked. It's something that I'll probably use a lot going forward. And like everything, as I've said, it's very easy to do, it's very intuitive, and works really well. So it's been a week now. I've had 3 flights with it, and what do I think so far? I think that it is incredibly easy to use. With each flight I felt myself getting more competent with it, more capable, and able to get the kind of shots that I was really happy with. But more than that, I find it's easy to use in terms of it fits in with my photography equipment. As I said at the beginning, it's really small and compact, so it's no effort at all to take it with me. But also what really surprised me is how easy it is to set up. Just to get it out of my bag, unfold it, calibrate it, and get it up in the air. It's less than 2 minutes, so it's really easy to kind of see something that you're interested in, get it up, fly, take some nice footage, land, and then carry on with photography. The two things fit very well together, which is really, really important to me. And there's one thing that I was really curious about at the beginning of this film. So that's really encouraging, knowing that it's something that will work so well. In terms of the image quality, for me, it's certainly good enough. There is always a compromise with photography, always, always, always. You're compromising image quality for portability and size. If you want the very, very best image quality for photography, for example, then you'd be shooting medium format, maybe even large format film or medium format digital, like a Phase 1 or a Fuji GFX. But if you do that, you're compromising the portability and how easy it is to carry that around. So for me, the Fuji X series sits at that ideal point of compromise where I have what for me is excellent image quality, as good as I need, good enough to print, but it's also really portable, it's lightweight, I can drop it in my bag, carry it around all day without it being stressful. So when it comes to drones, it's the same thing. For the very best image quality, you'd be looking at one of the Matrix Cs, anyway, one of those that can carry a DSLR underneath it, or an Inspire 2 or something like that. But that comes at the compromise of how easy it is to carry, which for me is a compromise I'm not willing to make, because it would mean not being able to take my camera gear and having a huge heavy drone to carry with me instead of a lightweight camera gear. So if I was shooting 4K productions to be seen on great big screens, that would probably matter to me. But because the films that I'm interested in making are principally going to be compressed for YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, it's a compromise that I'm perfectly happy to make, and for that the image quality is more than good enough for me. So the Mavic again sits at that point of compromise where it's really, really portable, it fits really well into my shooting routine, but the image quality is absolutely good enough for what I want to use it for. It's only been a week, so there's a lot of things that I haven't really even touched on. I haven't really played around with photography. I've just been doing videos, so I've not really looked at the quality of the raw images yet. I've not actually taken any images with it. And lots of the functions, except for the active track and the tripod, I haven't touched on those, but they'll come over time. And the other thing is the feeling of nervousness I get while I'm flying it. It's only been a week, so I still get this really sort of strong sense of vertigo when I see it flying. I still think it's going to disappear over the horizon or fall out of the sky, disappear into the river or whatever. But I know that's going to pass. It's like when I started with photography, getting my camera really close to the edge of the ocean with where there were waves and stuff like that it made me feel anxious that I was going to break my gear. And now it's something that I do without thinking. Equipment is essentially a tool. It's there to be used, not to be babied, not to be protected. You take it out, you use it, you abuse it, and it's just I need to get to the point with the Mavic where I'm completely comfortable and confident in the technology and in the software and in myself that I can use it without fear. And I think there's the driving a car thing as well. When you learn to drive, you're very conscious of everything that you're doing. You're very even keeping the car straight on the road requires all these adjustments that you're very aware that you're making until it becomes second nature. And I think flying a drone is going to be like that. It's going to become something that will become much more intuitive. But just in a week, it's really surprised me at how easy it is to get up and running and to get the kind of footage that I'm really, really happy with it. And I'm really excited about the future, about getting better, about learning more about video, and the things that I can do. I'm looking forward to traveling with it. I've got some trips planned this year where I think it's going to be fantastic to get a different perspective that I'm going to be able to create some really nice films, some nice photographs. And that's really exciting. I think it's really great when a piece of technology can really inspire you and fire your imagination about the things that you want to do and that you can do and the potential that it has. And I'm really liking that. I really like that a lot. So I don't know how useful this video has been. As I said, it's not been in any way technical or in-depth, and it's just barely scratched the surface of the Mavic. But it's been a lot of fun, and I hope that's been interesting. I'm going to try and do some more videos principally on photography, but I'm also going to be using the drone and incorporating that in these videos, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So thanks a lot, and take care.